talking to the administrators, and one of the things that I brought up, that they had brought up, was, Jim, what can we do? As a school, what can the school do as far as even dealing with the public? And I kind of left them with the thing, you know, it's going to come to a day where religion is going to have to be put back into public schools.
Amen.
Thank you. It's been taken out of the public schools, and there's reasons why it's been taken out, and there's organizations that are highly active in doing stuff like this and have a lot of influence in it. To put religion back in a public school, can that be done? Yes, it can. It can be done by offering a religion class that kids can sign up with parents' permission, and that's something they can attend.
However, we have let one person, like Madeline Murray O'Hara, take prayer out of our schools. You see the state of the schools. If you don't realize what it's like, and like he said, so few went to that meeting of 1,000 people in the school. My sister teaches school in one of the surrounding areas. They are so limited. Let me tell you, that library is so full of witchcraft and Satanism. It is so full of it. But they have taken out every decent, moral thing. They are really not allowed any Christmas things. But you see, the Halloween things stretched all around.
Welcome to Freethinking 101, a production of the Rationalist Society of St. Louis. We offer you the opportunity to examine some ideas with us, to sweep out the cobwebs in the recesses of your mind, to enjoy some critical thinking during the next half hour. The film clips you just saw were taken at a meeting that was held in one of the suburbs of St. Louis City, and our guest today, Pat Inniss, attended this meeting recently, where there was some concern about Satanism and how it might affect children. Can you tell us who is Satan and what is Satanism, Pat?
Well, Satan is a man of many faces, Steve. It's really interesting to study the genesis of this whole concept, but it goes way back, about as far as you can trace back in history. You can't really find the beginning of the concept. He's got his roots in Judaic and paganistic religious traditions. Also, there are strong Zoroastrian influences. I think we had Bernard Katz appeared on the show a few weeks ago and did a very good job of explaining the development of the Satan concept in our society. But it's really a fine example of religious syncretism, because what happened was that Christianity, of course, itself was formed from many different thoughts and beliefs which came together to form Christianity. And then as it spread throughout other parts of the world, it picked up ideas along the way. And the Satan concept really reflects a lot of the ideas that were picked up. Actually, nowadays, as Satan is presented, he really represents a composite of many of the gods in what they call pagan religions. Ra, the Egyptian sun god, is often presented as an image of Satan. Probably one of the strongest images is Pan, because the Greek and Roman influences were very, very strong in the formation of Christianity. Pan was a fertility god, represented as having horns. And all these influences really came about to create this image that we have now of Satan.
Many different sources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of what Satanism itself is, well, that's almost equally difficult to answer. The concept of Satanism, really, a lot of people would call the ancient pagan religions to be Satanism, because they worship gods other than what they would say would be the Judeo-Christian God, Yahweh. And he was, and so therefore, by their definition, that's Satan. Also, these other gods, these other religions also often had very different value systems than we find in the Judeo-Christian religion. Oftentimes they emphasized worldly pleasures and materialism. They de-emphasized altruism. They went for the here and now, as opposed to Christianity, which sort of says, hey, lay back and wait for your reward in the afterworld.
Yeah, they were sort of like the Roman gods, which were almost human.
Exactly. Yes. Well, nowadays there's a tendency for people to label many different hedonistic philosophies or religions as being Satanistic because of this connection. But in the modern terms, Satanism, you can trace the modern roots back to, well, there's a group in Ireland back in the 1700s called the Hellfire Club, and actually this was really not much more than a opportunity for well-heeled people back in Ireland to enjoy themselves in rather lascivious manner.
A bunch of the boys got together and had a good time.
What they thought was a good time, yes. But of course, there were people, rather prominent people. Benjamin Franklin himself was said to have visited the Hellfire Club and availed himself of the facilities there.
I think they made a movie of the Hellfire Club, if I remember.
And in the United States, you have, of course, I guess two main factions right now. You have the Church of Satan, headed up by this guy, Anton LaVey. He's a rather colorful character who dates back to the 60s, I guess, was when he first won prominence. And then there's another group of that's a spin-off from the Church of Satan, and that's the Temple of Set, headed by our own Lieutenant Colonel, I believe, Aquino.
Yeah, a local person.
A local person, right. But both of these, their connection with the ancient paganistic traditions is a little tenuous because they've formulated themselves in the modern era, not with a direct traditional connection to the ancient arts or the ancient religions. But when you look at modern Satanism, Anton LaVey seems to be the source for most of the literature that is often talked about in the media.
The source of many of the ideas, I guess.
Yes, he is. But then again, I don't think he's really the influence for a lot of the ideas that a lot of people take their ideas from Hollywood productions and comic books, apparently.
Yeah.
Because Mr. LaVey, when he has appeared in the media, he will deny a lot of the practices that are attributed to him. And of course, and then I shouldn't go without mentioning the what you might call the high school Satanist set. And whether these are true Satanists or not, they take on the affectations of Satanism, some of the trappings. Some have even gone so far as to perform what they view as being Satanistic rites. So that's sort of a amateur Satanist, you could look at it.
Yeah. So there seems to be something to what the film clip showed, maybe.
There's a reason for a certain amount of concern, certainly.
Yeah. All right.
But I might say there's a reason for a certain amount of concern about mainstream religion as well.
Yeah. What has been the historic attitude of Christianity toward Satanism?
Well, that's really interesting, Steve, because initially, I guess for about the first millennia, the church's attitude was, well, this is pretty much superstition. It would be regarded nowadays as a fairly enlightened attitude, because the church actually handed out penance to people that went around promoting the idea that Satan was, an active character on the stage of life, that there was really anything to worry about from these satanic conspiracies that we have today. But that attitude, that approach changed very rapidly. Officially, it changed rapidly. Now, there was always an undercurrent of fear of these satanic cults. There was
witchcraft, that sort of thing.
Yes, exactly. Although the church downplayed it, it was out there. People that were Christians were afraid of it because it was, in the pre-Christian era, it was a very strong means of social control. People used this fear of witchcraft, of occult powers, to control other people. And it continued into the Christian era. But the Christians, the church officially sort of downplayed it and poo-pooed the threat. You can even view it in terms of social interaction between classes, because the church buttressed the power of the nobility in the feudal system. All these, part of their authority was derived in a direct line from God through the king, through the aristocracy. Satanism was sort of an everyman's metaphysical tool to manipulate his universe.
Was this what was going on in the Salem witchcraft period?
Well, that was almost a different story. Now,
Yeah.
there was a certain amount of witchcraft being occurring, and there were sort of socio-political factions which came into play in you know, that whole drama. But it a lot of it had to do with very much more subtle social and psychological factors. You know, these things always tend to happen in very strict societies, is where they have the most hysteria developing, and that was in primarily a Puritan community.
Yeah.
I think they ended up losing about 24 people before they finally got a hold of the situation there in Salem.
So it's been a sort of overblown.
Satanism has certainly been overblown throughout history, and to the effect that, well, there's been quite a body count in all the various witch hunts they've had. One estimate has it that from, I think, the 1100s onward, there were more than 1 million people executed on charges of witchcraft, and most of those were women.
Yeah.
You know, I might mention just also on that point that women have borne the brunt of the Inquisitions all along, and this comes really from biblical concepts of the women being the weaker gender and more susceptible to corruption by Satan. You know, everybody's familiar with the story of Adam and Eve, and one of the primary works that was used by witch hunters was the Malleus Maleficarum. That's the witch's hammer. That was written by a couple of Dominicans. It's sort of a handbook for people to use in conducting witch investigations and prosecutions. And these guys went so far as to concoct a false etymology for the word feminine. They said, well, feminine was supposedly derived from they combined Latin and Spanish. The Latin femina came from the Spanish fe, meaning faith, and minor, meaning less. So naturally, if you were feminine, you were of less faith.
You probably could take the word and with numerology figure it out to be 666 or something. Why is there such a hue and cry lately about this sort of thing?
Well, that's sort of hard to figure. You know, I guess I could speculate, and I'm not sure how valid it would be, but there does seem to be certain things that have that correlate with this. You know, it's very easy to see that nowadays a lot of this fear of Satanism, what I call the hysteria of Satanism, is connected with fundamentalist religion. Some of the primary people out there that are pushing this whole fear of Satan are the fundamentalists who are using it sort of as a way to stir a business for themselves. You know, you know, you were talking about Salem a little earlier. Well, you know, one of the primary characters that was involved in that was a guy named Cotton Mather. You might have, that might be a somewhat familiar word, you know. And he sort of helped promote the whole hysteria by saying that the second coming was approaching and that Satan was hard at work. This has a rather familiar ring even nowadays. If you've got cable, and I'm assuming most of the people that are watching this have cable, they can probably turn on their TV just about any night of the week and hear some guy, probably very nattily attired, screaming about how the Christ is going to return imminently and that Satan is hard at work. There's some type of final struggle going on between the forces of good and the forces of evil. As a matter of fact, these same messages were echoed in that meeting I attended. That was conducted by a police officer from one of the local municipalities. He was very obviously a Christian. He pushed Christianity very strongly, and he said that we were looking at a war between the Christians and the Satanists. The same thing that Cotton Mather said back in Salem.
Does he imply, from what you said, would that imply that anyone that is not his particular brand of Christian then would be a representative of Satan.
Well, you know, if you sit,
That a little strong.
well, you know, that, I tell you, they spent a lot of time talking about Aquino. People wanted to know where his house was. People wanted to know, you know, everything about this man. He's been convicted of no crime. He's been accused of crimes. He's been cleared. But the police officer did not discourage this, and he spent a lot of time talking about the legitimate trappings of Satanism, how to recognize it, and made people very suspicious of anybody who might have a pentagram, who might wear an ankh, or any of the other things that are traditionally associated with Satanism. So he never drew a line between criminal activities and satanic activities. After listening to Sergeant Mantle give his spiel, one tended to leave with the impression that it was certainly suspicious, if not downright criminal, to be a Satanist.
I'm curious, who actually sponsored this meeting? Do you have,
Well,
you know?
it was held at the Overland Community Center. It was in a public building. It was conducted by, well, the primary speaker was this Sergeant Jim Mantle, who was a St. Anne Police Department, one of the neighboring municipalities. Also attended by a Overland police officer. This Sergeant Mantle is a juvenile officer. Now, he didn't really have a lot of facts to bring you about satanic activities. He showed some Polaroids of satanic graffiti, which had been drawn under overpasses. A lot of times this graffiti was things that resembled peace symbols, AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne. These things help spike the statistics of the occurrence of satanic graffiti. I mean, they've got a very wide, very loose definition of what is satanic. And this, of course, helps promote the hysteria. I might also add, though, that, you know, a lot of this comes back to a distrust for authority, especially the government. Now, they're talking about a conspiracy. If you read some of the literature associated with satanic, with the satanic hysteria, a lot of it has to deal with the conspiracy. There are people in high places who are Satanists. Before the show, we were talking about Ronald Reagan. His name, Ronald Wilson Reagan, 6 letters in each name. Aha.
666.
Yes, that was, for a short time, his address.
Maybe some of our viewers don't know what the 666 implies.
Well, that comes from the, was it the book of Revelation? You might know that better than I do, Steve, about the mark of the beast. So I guess if you've seen the movies, you've seen what their interpretation is. But this is, of course, the Bible has some very strong numerological messages in it. And numbers are also, you know, strewn throughout the Bible.
Yeah, at least some people are reading these numerological messages in the Bible, and I understand you can take almost anyone's name, and by appropriate manipulations you can come up with some of these numerology kind of things.
There's also some other interesting things going on, though. I mean, cattle mutilations is one thing that the Satanists use to bolster their arguments that this is something real and happening, and they say that somehow mysteriously cattle out on the plains are being ritually sacrificed. Now this is sort of interesting because we have a crossing here, a convergence between the ufologists.
Yeah, that's what I was going to comment on, the UFO people.
Right, they're battling over this.
Yeah.
The UFO people say that it's UFOs that are doing this. The Satanists say that it's devil worshippers, part of their ritual to conduct these cattle sacrifices.
Maybe they could join forces, satanic people from UFOs.
That's quite a possibility. Now, I don't know if I wouldn't suggest that to them, Steve. That might give them too good an idea.
Okay, I'll keep quiet about that.
But I might mention that the cattle mutilations really
they're normal phenomena.
Well, most of the people that have examined these mutilations have decided that they aren't really mutilations, that these animals have just been picked over. They've been dead for quite a while. They never come upon a fresh corpse, a good example of some of the strange things that they say happened. The part that's supposed to be really bizarre is that there aren't any footprints around. You know, the cattle are found, there's no evidence that they were, of any activity around it. So that's how the UFO people got onto the trail.
Yeah. I notice your blue card here. Are those some of those symbols you were talking about?
Well, you know, there was an article in the paper a few months ago about a town in Pasadena, Texas. Now, they've banned peace symbols from the schools banned the wearing of peace symbols. Now, this is something that really got me. You know?
Yeah, you like to wear them.
I grew
You
up there
have
in the
in your
60s.
time, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that sort of, you know, I identify with a little bit. And they can go ahead and attack. They can say that Robert McNamara is a Satanist. They can say that Ronald Reagan is a Satanist. And a number of people, when they attack the peace symbol, that really gets to me. So I just drew this up to show that the peace symbol is not really a satanic image. What we have here is something that explains how the peace symbol was derived. Now, this goes back to the 60s, okay?
Yeah.
Back to the nuclear disarmament movement in England. These were actually graphical semaphore representations. If you were recording semaphore signals, you're writing them down. One way to do it would be to write the letters. The other way to do it would be to write a graphical representation of the flag positions. These are commonly used in books and I think even in television somewhat. But this is a semaphore D in graphical form.
Yeah.
This is a semaphore N in graphical form. You put them together, superimpose them, you get nuclear disarmament, which was the theme of the peace movement in England in the early 60s. Now, if you notice this, the lines, these two legs here are radii coming
from the center.
From the center, of course. The bottom is a true satanic image referred to as Nero's cross, and what it represents is a normal Christian cross, inverted and with the arms broken.
Yeah.
Okay, and you notice, as a inverted cross would be, the arms don't come from the center, they come from closer to the bottom.
Yeah.
This is a satanic image. The peace symbol isn't a satanic image. No. There's no reason to tell kids they can't wear their peace symbols. Kids that are trying to recapture some of the spirit, the essence of the 60s. It's a little sad that they've turned to attacking this. Even Sergeant Mantle, in the meeting we were at, said that the peace symbol was actually a satanic image.
Oh, my.
But it's a fine example of the type of misinformation that's abroad in this whole area.
One of the misconceptions, yeah. What are some of the other misconceptions?
Well, I guess one of the things is that, well, like I already mentioned the conspiracy theory. Okay, that has it that all sorts of very powerful people are involved in this. Thousands of missing children. I think this is one of the things that sort of puts this fear of Satanism sort of over the hump in terms of really gaining some momentum, within the last few years. There was recently a lot of concern about children being kidnapped.
Yeah.
And rumors had it that thousands of children were being, swept from the streets and mysteriously disappearing off.
Yeah, they're putting their pictures on milk cartons now, that sort of thing.
Well, there's certainly, there have been kids mysteriously disappear.
Yeah.
Not thousands.
And not so mysteriously either. I think often the relatives or their parents are having problems among themselves, and they each want to have the child, and so some of the kidnappings relate to that. I think most of them.
Right. Yes. Well, actually, if you want to promote a fear of Satanism to get your particular religious point across, then what you do is you look at some statistic that's been turned in about the number of children reported missing, and you report those as kidnappings. You say these kids have been kidnapped, and all of them are dead now, probably. They've been sacrificed in satanic rituals because we know there are thousands of Satanists out there listening to rock music and doing evil things. I guess that's one of the most powerful. I mean, when I was at this meeting, one of the ladies I was sitting next to said that, yes, thousands of children have been kidnapped. She truly believed that. She didn't know where they'd gone. She suggested that it was Satan, due to the Satanists. But no matter what the police say, the responsible police there's many more people out there who feel that they can make some type of advantage for their position to continue to perpetuate these myths.
Fan the flames, sort of.
Yes. Well, in that same vein is some lady now that's going around saying that she actually bore children for the purpose of satanic rituals. These children were to be ritually sacrificed.
I think I heard that somewhere.
Right, probably on Geraldo.
Very, I think maybe so.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
That's one of the other problems nowadays is the media hysteria.
Yeah.
I mean, the media hysteria, the irresponsibility of the media, really, in reporting a lot of these things. They're very some of the media outlets are about the equivalent to grocery store tabloids, and
Yeah.
they really pander to these sort of things. They promote these. They don't conduct any responsible journalistic investigations.
Yeah.
It all goes out uncensored, unfiltered, and if there's contrary evidence, they don't particularly want to hear about it.
Yeah. Okay. What sort of harm can this Satan hysteria lead to?
Well, a lot of harm, really. You know, you tend to take it a little sort of lightly, but we saw. I think I mentioned the fact that there are 1 million people killed, mainly women.
Yeah.
That's it's hard to put a number on it, but that's
Yeah.
what it
Over the centuries.
over the centuries, right? So there's and when you hear law enforcement people nowadays, like this group called Cops for Christ,
I hadn't heard about that.
well, there's an outfit out there called Cops for Christ.
They have
They're
a Crooks for Christ too?
It's probably behind bars, let's
Yeah.
hope, anyway.
Yeah.
But groups like this are very dedicated in their fundamentalist beliefs. The Bible says something like, suffer not a witch to live, or there's some words to that effect, which was used, literally interpreted and used to conduct many of the persecutions of witches back in those days.
Yeah.
So, it's something that's sort of scary when,
Yeah.
these people get a hold of this sort of hysteria.
Yeah. Can you, in half a minute, tell us what rationalists should do, how they should react to this?
Well, rationalists are going to have to sort of be the conscience or the watchdogs in this situation. It's up to rationalists, not being obliged to toe the religious line, to feed the truth back to the public. Shows like this will go a great way toward doing that, but I'm afraid that for every 30 minutes of Freethinking 101 on the television every week, there's probably about 9 hours of religious programming on it.
Yeah.
About 3 hours of which is probably sympathetic
Yeah.
to the satanic hysteria.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much for being with us and alerting us to this, because it can be a problem. We're very pleased to present this, in a sense, sort of as public information. And we would like to hear from you in the audience. If you would like to let us know how you feel about programming of this sort, our address is P.O. Box 2931, St. Louis, Missouri 63130. We would like to hear from you, and we'll continue to offer programs of an informative nature of this type. So, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Steve.